This is the Pro Perspective from House Pro, where home builders, designers, and industry experts share their views on running a modern firm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Pro Perspective. I'm Liza Hausman, and we're very lucky today to be joined by Anastasia Harrison, AIA. She's the principal architect and owner of AHD&Co, a New Jersey-based firm specializing in high-end residential and boutique commercial design. And welcome, Anastasia. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm good. Things have been great. It's a little cold here in the Northeast, but we're internally turning up the heat.
I hope so. Yeah, it's definitely been very cold on the East Coast, and
Hmm.
my colleagues over there have definitely bundled up and sent me lovely pictures of snow piled high. So
Yeah.
fun to see. Well, we're just into the new year. I can't believe it's 2026. How are you
Yeah.
feeling about design and architecture trends this year? What are you seeing? What are you excited about? What's your current
Yeah.
inspiration?
I feel like the world has finally aligned itself with my personal love and desire of color and florals and fabric and layering of all different materials. It wasn't that way for such a long time. And, you know, back in the day when everything was like gray and white, I was really sad. And it was really hard to create those spaces, although we did do them. We did them pretty well. Personally, I feel like I am in my groove, which is so fun because it's a mix of antiques and vintage fabrics along with new fabrics that are modern and clean. And that juxtaposition of materials is really special.
Are there any, particular projects that you're excited that you have on the horizon? And, what is it
Yeah.
that gets you excited about a particular project?
I'm working on a historic home now that we're doing a complete overhaul. It had a renovation done in the 80s, kind of very 1989 with a lot of 45-degree angles and burgundies and uh, terrazzo everywhere. So it was really fun. We just ripped it all out and now we're adding back smaller patterns, layers, but also putting in some modern finishes, modern lighting, just to sort of play with that design element and layering things. The dining room comes with a gorgeous hand painted mural, and it's elegantly crafted around all this panel millwork in this beautiful buttery yellow, which is very pretty right now, but it's a little older, right? So we're going to lean in and go a little deeper, try to find a little bit more of that blue-green hue in the mural and sort of darken up the room. So it's just really been a lot of wonderful components that you can mix in to an older house. New design, old design, and sort of giving it its own character, not necessarily taking it and putting it back to the day that it was built, but sort of creating a memory from then to now.
That's interesting. Are the clients then kind of giving you free rein? How do you have that discussion about mixing the old and new?
Yeah, we are having that conversation, and a lot of times clients will get stuck in a dream of what this house should be or could be, and any client, not particularly this one. And it's really our job to ensure that we are bringing them options that they can see themselves in their own home, but also options that sort of push their boundaries. Because
Hmm.
why would they hire us, right? If they just went and picked all the things that they thought they liked. So it's kind of my job to bring a really traditional wallpaper and mix it with a really modern window treatment or something, mixing it with a modern window treatment and a really new kind of light, maybe out of a material, maybe it's porcelain or something that you wouldn't have seen when the house was originally built.
Love it. Well, I'm
Mhm.
excited to hopefully see it photographed when it's done, if that's on the
Yeah,
horizon for
that
this project.
this one is on a little bit of a short scale, so hopefully it'll be photographed by the end of the year, which is, as you know, sometimes projects take 2, 3 years.
Yes.
So I personally like it when they're on a short path because then we don't fall out of love with stuff we picked. Sometimes if a project's 2 or 3 years old, you've picked something and you're like, oh, but I've seen, 10 more things. And you're like, maybe we can still change it or, update it a little bit more. But usually we just stick to the plan.
Makes sense. No, I love that you are in your happy place with the warmer tones and the colors that it does feel like. we're kind
Yeah.
of getting back to a homier, obviously still pushing the design boundaries, but a much more homey versus a cold feel. I've
Yeah.
seen that coming is exciting. So let's shift gears a little bit to the business front. From an architecture and design standpoint, what do you see as the opportunities and challenges for our industry and for businesses like yours in the coming year?
Everything has gotten more expensive. I mean, I think that's just the nature of the last 5 years. Things have compounded in a way I don't think we've ever seen before. So we have to be a little bit wiser about level of investment and where to put that level of investment with clients and educating them on truly what something's going to cost from the beginning, whether it's a renovation or an addition, alteration, or if it's really just furnishings and finishings. Like, what do you spend your money on and what can you get away with? Maybe you buy some used pieces or some vintage pieces that are not quite as expensive as new, or maybe you hold off on certain things and you only buy some foundational pieces and work around existing components that you have. Being an architect and an interior designer gives me a perspective to help them establish the right size project, I would say. It's not, a lot of times architects are just designing space and they're not really thinking about all of the finishes and layers that need to go on the inside of it. So when we talk about budget, we talk about everything from, building the basement bigger to how tall it is, all the way through to window treatments and accessories on the shelves. So helping clients understand where to spend their money is something that we've been working really hard to adjust their level of expectation so that they're happy at the end, right? So you build it a little smaller so that it's a little less, but it has higher finishes. Or maybe they really don't care about the level of finishes and they really just want all that extra square footage. Well, we help them guide that principle as well.
Are there any, I guess, particular ways that you approach that or questions you ask that you found really help elicit those priorities from your clients? It might help folks listening, have
Yeah.
those more productive conversations up front. And I think you're 100% spot on in terms of setting expectations up front to make sure that, right, you're delivering on those. How have you had to, I guess, shift or change those conversations to address that?
We address it really early in the conversation. We know in our area, cost per square foot to either renovate or build. We talk about those numbers sort of at that very first meeting. I don't sugarcoat things or sort of gloss over them. If it's, let's just say if it's $500 a square foot, it's $500 a square foot, and that what that includes, I tell them. So we do some quick math and I say, what's your level of comfort with this project? Where do you want to be all in? Do you want to be at $1 million, $2 million, $200,000, right? So then we talk about what the options are to help them find what's the most comfortable place to be. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to how much money you have to spend on a project.
Makes sense. I hear from designers often that, their least favorite part of the job are the difficult conversations, right? Things that come up, whether it's about financials or, delays, et cetera. What are the most typical difficult conversations that, you run into, and any advice on how you've handled those or headed them off at the pass and
Yeah.
thoughts there?
For clients or for designers?
For
I mean,
designers, how to
for
handle
designers.
the
Yeah.
difficult,
I
client
think
conversations.
it's better to have them early because then there's no preconceived ideas, notions, or thoughts. So if you bring up those difficult things early, for instance, one of the things I hear from a lot of the designers, because we have a trade program and we work with them, is communications. Like, how do you communicate with your client? My client texts me on a Saturday afternoon and I'm with my kids and I don't want to be rude and not respond, but I also don't, then you start to resent responding, right? So we have like a communication plan and we tell them, this is how we're going to communicate with you. This is our process. These are the hours in which you'll receive a call back. And if there's a flood, something's burning, or you're late for a meeting that we're supposed to be at together, you can text. Other than that, you have to keep your communications and email and just know you'll even if you get no answer, you'll get an answer, right? So it's one of my personal pet peeves in the office is any answer is an answer. Like, thank you for your email. I've received your question. Please note that I'm offsite all day today. I'll get to it tonight or tomorrow or 2 weeks from now, whatever it is, but give them an answer. Because then,
Yeah.
It's all about if they understand, you hear them. And if you say it early, then you can always look back and remind them. And the same thing with budget, right? If you design a dining room and you've never discussed the budget, but you picked $8,000 dining chairs and you picked a $25,000 table, and before you know it, you're at $125,000 in furnishings and finishes. And if they said, I was hoping to be at 40, that's too high, redesign it. Like if you would have had that conversation in the beginning and sort of said, okay, we can do a dining room here where chairs average $2,000 to $3,000 each, dining tables $8,000 to $9,000. We're looking at a $40,000 dining room, or we can look at a better version with a little bit higher level finishes, and that can be $60,000 to $90,000, right? You can gauge the conversation, and then you can refer back to it when things get a little difficult. And it's so much easier to refer back than it is to try to double take and redo it in the moment, because it's emotional and it really gets difficult. And that's the hardest thing for designers is when things get emotional.
100%. Yes. And it makes sense that, it's more respectful of everybody's time, right? If you're having those conversations up front and then you're not having to do rework and charge for rework, and they're not wondering, why we didn't have this conversation up front. So that
Right.
makes a lot of sense. And I like the advice of at least acknowledging when you get a communication, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the full answer. It's like, I received this, right? I hear you. We're on it. We'll get back to you with business hours. Perfectly
Yeah.
reasonable, but at least they know you're not ignoring them, and they matter.
Yes. And you
Good
can do
advice.
that if you want with text as well, because a lot that I hear is that they're getting texts from clients. And there's nothing wrong with responding to a text and just saying, listen, let's take this into email and I can answer you tomorrow. Like there's nothing wrong with saying if you feel that you want to acknowledge it in that moment, just so you can move on and enjoy whatever it is you were enjoying.
Smart, right? Because then you don't have that hanging over you either, right? You've
Hmm.
dealt with it and you can enjoy the rest of your day or weekend or whatever it
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
and not worry that you haven't responded. I think that's great advice. One of the things I think is really interesting about your business is just how you've diversified.
Hmm.
I think it'd be interesting for folks to hear how your business is set up and why you chose to structure it that way.
So I started as, I mean, I've always been an architect. I went to college to be an architect. I worked for the first 21 years as a straight on architect in, one of the largest firms in the world. And I really decided through that process that I loved interiors and that I wanted to do it all, because architects do one part, interior designers did another part, and there was none the two shall meet, right? So the space between the two windows in the master bedroom weren't the right width because it didn't fit a king size bed or whatever it may have been that sort of made me crazy. And I started one project when I went out on my own, and it was both architecture and interiors. And I was like, this went beautifully. This is perfect. And, and then I started those kinds of very small projects, and that sort of blew up as okay, this is a great business model. But then I had met other interior designers that were smaller and sort of struggling and asking, how did you do this? How did you do that? So we started we call it AHD Trade, which is a trade program where we support smaller designers. Um, a lot of designers are afraid to charge their markup or margin on product when in fact you're buying things at wholesale. You can't sell it at wholesale. Like it's just that's not how it works, right? Going to the diner and they give you the 19 cents they paid for the eggs, they charge you $1.50. Somebody's got to cook it, put it together, order it. So we teach them about that program and how to properly buy. We help them purchase. We have a procurement department that works for them. And then we teach them all about the business. We're having an event next week where we're talking about expanding your team without hiring. is the title of it. And it's really about having a procurement agent, hiring a, doing things with marketing that aren't necessarily hiring people, but getting consultants to sort of help you on a per diem basis. And from that, I really felt that there was another level of person that needed help. And I seem to have this like I want to help the community of design, right? I want to help everybody. So I help the designers, I help our clients. And now I've created a retail brand downstairs, which is our store called Heirloom. And we're bringing higher design products at the same price point as all retail, right? So it's kind of same price as Restoration Hardware or Crate and Barrel or in that realm or our house. But it's at a much higher level of design. So if you're somebody who wants to do their own living room, you could come in and you can pick a beautiful blue plaid sofa if that's what you want, or a green floral print. And we would work with them, helping them make those selections, and then we would purchase it for them through our retail store. There's also home goods and accessories down there. So that sort of works two ways. We have a lot of designers that shop our accessories to accessorize clients' homes. And then we have a lot of clients who just say, oh, can you come style my bookshelves? I bought this house and has a whole wall of bookshelves and I don't know what to do with it. So then we're able to just pull things from the store and bring it over there, try it out, and what they like, they keep, and what they don't, we bring back. So it's sort of designed by community, right? I'm trying to help the whole world here.
So it's interesting for the retail portion of your business. Did you start it because you thought, oh gosh, there's this real gap in the market that people are looking for? Or was it like, hey, I want to have a different revenue stream just to, you know, deal with the ebbs and flows of business? How do you think about that?
Well, I didn't start it because we weren't busy up here, because we're very
Okay.
busy up here, and that wasn't a deciding factor at all. It was that I feel there was a huge gap in the world of furniture. First of all of our upholstery is American made in North Carolina. So through 2020s, we had
Wow.
COVID and we had supply chain problems and we had so much of a disaster that people bought whatever they could online, right? Like you just bought whatever you could, because sofas were at like, you could have had a baby quicker than you could have had a sofa made at some point of like 21, 22. And and you got a white duck sofa, or you got a white boucle sofa, or a gray linen sofa. Like there was no personality, there was no love, there was no. And now, and a lot of those things are made overseas, and a lot of those things are starting to degrade now, right? Because they weren't great quality, but they were what people could get at the time. And I wanted to give people the option to sit on something, touch something, feel something, and customize something in a way that wasn't exorbitantly expensive, um, or super high-end designer like we have up here, but just sort of that middle of the road availability to the regular person to have a pink sofa if they wanted it. And we actually did one for a client a couple months ago. It's lilac, right?
Ooh,
She couldn't go to Restoration Hardware, Crate and
no,
Barrel, our house, and do a lilac sofa. Like, no.
I love
But
that.
yeah. And she got to sit in it. So she
Right.
knows what fill she wanted. She knows how deep the seat is. Like, it's not
Right.
this unexpected, you know, show up of a crate of furniture and then you have to figure out if it's all good or not.
That that part is so important.
Yes.
It really is. We're going through a second kitchen remodel right now, and even just choosing bar stools and what's comfortable. It's like this time around, I'm like, I got to sit on the thing. I need to know.
A lot of people are
Is it
doing that.
comfortable? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are just like, I don't want to buy something I can't sit in. So it helps. It really helps. Maybe I don't have every model because it's a fairly small shop. It's not huge, but at least I have the different pillows and the different depth units, and then I know they can sit in it or feel it and get a good sense of what it is.
Definitely the only way to get really comfortable about what you're investing in. I love that. So so the retail store fills a gap that and I 100% agree. They're right. They're just sort of all these chain options and everything looks the same. And then you're not customizing anything. I love that. It seems like you saw a similar gap with your local designer community and these, folks who are looking to develop their businesses and develop their skills. Can you share a little bit more about your philosophy there and how you think about the design community and what was that kind of gap and how did you notice it? Like when did this happen and when did you say to yourself, huh? And was there like a particular trigger? Did it build up over time?
One of the things that we worked really hard at, I have a procurement agent that works with us. She's our director of procurement, Zoe, and she runs her portion of our business like her own business, right? Like she's CEO of that. And she's always concerned with what's the margin? How well are we buying? What's the next level we need to buy at in order to buy better? What products do we have the least callbacks on? Has the highest quality? Has the best customer service? And I am part of a bunch of different think tanks of interior designers from all different levels, some higher than me, some smaller than me. And it's really important to collaborate and have conversation in design. Yes, we are each other's competition, but we're stronger together than we are apart. We learn from each other, we learn from each other's mistakes, and we can teach things to each other to make ourselves stronger. If somebody wants to hire me, they want to hire me because of my intellectual property, not necessarily because my brown sofa is $100 cheaper than her brown sofa, right? It's not about that. It's about hiring the designers. So I found that a lot of designers, just through small conversations, were feeling unsure of how to step into the market. And I am an open book. I'll answer any question they want to know. And I started doing a couple podcasts and live talks in different events. And it worked out that I would get a lot of feedback and questions. So then I was like, well, maybe this community just needs, and it's a micro community. It's pretty local. Maybe they just need an outlet. Maybe they need a place. And it's turned into that, right? They come here and sometimes they really just want to know if I like this fabric or that fabric. But a lot of times they're meeting with Zoe and discussing maybe it's a problem. Maybe they put a sofa in that doesn't fit. Maybe it's too big. And now we have to help them troubleshoot. So they feel like they have somebody to sort of hold their hand through it. And that's the way we have been running that program. And it's been very successful. And it's grown year over year. It's doubled. So, if it was $3,000, then it went to six, and now it's easily six figures. And it's a great way to give back. I probably do too many things, but I also run a chapter of a charity called Savvy Giving by Design. Susan Winterstein, you know her.
Yes. Yeah, we support that. Yep.
And I run the New Jersey chapter, and we do rooms for children. And again, we bring other designers in to help us either design the room, put it together, but it's about that overall feeling of helping other people in a way through design that sort of brings them emotional joy that you couldn't do any other way. And it's just, I guess that's sort of how I feel about the trade program, right? We're bolstering other people. I'm not going to be in this job forever. I'm going to retire someday and somebody's got to do it. So why not help them?
I love it. It's such a great way to build community and build the future of interior
Mhm.
design and get folks up to speed on what they need to know. I know one of I'm interested in hearing more about the kinds of coursework or education that you provide. I know one of the things you had in today's conversation, you talked about the challenge for designers when things get emotional. And when we talked the other day, you mentioned this sort of inherent guilt around marking up furniture. Right? You mentioned it earlier, but
Mhm.
this a lot of it is the emotions, right? And not necessarily the logic of it. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, right? It, do folks get over the guilt by just explaining, your egg metaphor, just right, this is just how the world works, and is
Yeah.
that enough to help folks get over the inherent guilt? What do you do?
Most of the time, It's all about understanding what other people do, right? So you don't want to be the only one out there doing something because then somebody will call you out on it. But understanding that the entire industry acts this way and behaves in this manner, that this is the way it works. You are being sold goods at a discounted rate, not to pass along and flood the market with it, but in order to facilitate all of that work being done to purchase, ensure that the details are correct, make sure it's received properly, make sure it's seated properly, make sure everything about that piece of furniture is perfect, is what that markup is for. So that is your job, and you're being paid for your job. You shouldn't give any of it away. Like, would you give design services away? Would you just say, sure, I'll design your living room and not charge you anything? It's kind of the same philosophy, and you just have to get them over that hump and help them understand that this is a normal practice. And you're trained to do these things. You're trained to bring a higher level of understanding and perspective and all of the components that they couldn't do themselves. So anything that somebody can't do themselves, they usually pay somebody to do. So there's nothing wrong with that. Like, just drop the guilt. And a lot of times I'm asked very candid questions like, how much do you mark up your furniture? Or how much do you mark up your window treatments? And I don't give them exact numbers because my scale kind of goes all over the place, depending upon how well we buy, or like, you have to be cognizant as well of what people can buy things for on the internet. So we teach them that. And we give them, what do you say? How do you manage it? Here's my proposal. We try to protect them whenever we can. Yeah, and they ask very real questions. A lot of the questions more so because getting them to understand they have to take margin on furniture is usually pretty quickly, right? They don't like to do it, then they understand they need to do it, and then they do it, and then they feel good. That's a pretty easy one. It's about managing clients' expectations through the design process. How many times do you redesign something before you say, I'm sorry, that's going to take more time and I'm going to have to charge you more? How do you have those? That's the next level of design. Difficult questions I hear from designers a lot is like, how do you charge for something? What do you charge? What do you say to a client that says, oh, I don't want to pay that? So we have those really frank conversations, and those are usually the most well-attended events, is when it's sort of me sitting at a chair with like an open mic.
asking the difficult questions. I guess what are some of the other kind of big questions that folks have and that are looking for guidance on?
They usually ask when they're going to hire, right? Like, this is too much for me. Who's the first person I'm going to hire? How do I hire? How do I take things off my plate? And the one thing I will tell them is, first of all, you have us as a team member. So consider that like your first hire, right? So you've hired us to help you with your procurement and your purchasing, so you don't have to worry about it. But think about what you don't like the most. Mm-hmm. What do you hate to do? And everybody always says bookkeeping, right? Because
bookkeeping, yes.
Nobody likes bookkeeping. So hire a fractional person. So you don't have to go in and hire somebody full-time, because a full-time person really requires a lot of business understanding. Yes. You have to understand how much money you need to bring in every week in order to pay your bills and pay that person. So we'll talk a lot about that, about fractional employees to sort of take the things off your plate you don't want. And then individually, I will have meetings with different designers where I'm having one this week where we'll sit down and I'll help them understand their business a little better and how they might be more profitable, or understanding how to look at their business to see where the profitability lies and how they can hire other people. Because that's the trick, right? I have 13 employees, so I have to pay them every week. So I'm constantly on the scale.
It's a big staff. Yes.
Yeah, I'm on the scale of how much work comes in, how much money goes out, and then how do you balance that workload, and what's the cadence of that work and getting it through, which then leads you to those difficult conversations when clients want to redesign things, right? If you're redesigning things without a fee, you've already used those fees to pay your rent, pay your employees, pay your lights, your electric, your whatever it is you're using, your software. But now if you're designing again the same thing and you're not charging for it because you feel uncomfortable or bad, or you didn't set expectations from the beginning, now you're making much less money per hour. So then what does that do to your overall profitability? And we explain those things if we talk about them.
Do you find that most of the designers have good visibility into their profitability? Is that
No,
someplace that you help? Yeah, that's what
no,
we see.
they have no real understanding. I mean, I think, you know, using programs like Houzz is a huge time saver when it comes to that, because I mean, now the profitability is right on the bottom. You could see it. It's pretty clear, but you need to understand how the cadence of when you need to bring that in. Like, I need to sell this much money each month, which means
Right.
this much money each week, which means this much money each day, which means out of 8 hours, I need to be profitable for 2 or 3, whatever it may be. But if you can break your profitability down into bite sizes, it makes it much more tolerable, right? If you just sort of
Right.
look at it at the end of the year and you're like, wow, I had $150,000 in sales this year, but it cost you 180,000 to get
Right.
those 150. Like, you didn't.
No.
That's a hobby. That's not a job.
Yes.
So,
No, it's amazing how many actually very successful, right? Even well-known folks find that they're not making the profit that they should or that you would think is happening.
mhm,
And you're totally right. You need to be able to look at it in a way that it's actionable, that you can say, okay, like you said, you break it down into chunks. Am I on track to meet my weekly,
mhm.
monthly, goals of bringing in new business or of staying on
Well, because
budget?
you can't pivot in 3 month increments, 6 month increments. You can pivot. I find the shortest amount of time that we really look at things every 2 weeks, because I can pivot in 2 weeks because my sales cycle is 3 months. It takes me 3 months to advertise or market or sell myself for that job to actually come in. That's how long it
Mhm.
takes me. And if I turn on the marketing dollars and the marketing efforts, I know in 3 months I'm going to have a backlog of work. But I don't want to do that if I know I already have work in front of me, right? You have to figure out when you need to push the pedal and when you need to pull back. And if I'm looking at it every 2 weeks, I could say, okay, I have this much work in front of me and I need to get this done before Friday. And then it starts to you need to get as much done as much as you need to win more, right? So it's sort of that push and pull.
Couple things that I thought were interesting. So you mentioned you're going to get this historical house photographed. Do you photograph every project? And
Oh,
what do you advise?
yeah. So there are projects where we do our best to create someone's dream home. And it may not align, like I said, those gray and white days, right, with my own internal design style. And there's no need to photograph them, but there's a need to make them significant for the homeowners and the business owners of which are going to be using the space every day. They need to be heard, seen. The design needs to be inherent to them and what they want. And that's my philosophy. I don't have my design style. I impart on projects. I try to take a design philosophy that the client sees for their future and really brings forward. And I was at a talk at High Point where Corey Damon Jenkins was speaking, and no, it's really not important to photograph every project. You photograph the significant ones, the ones that are really special, and they elude the kind of work that you want more of.
Exactly. Yes. Right. You're basically it's your brand and you want to make sure that you're
Mhm.
photographing the things that you think are going to most represent you and then speak to the people who are going to come looking for that
Yeah,
type of work. Yep.
yeah.
100%. What do you recommend to designers that are earlier on in their career and maybe don't have as much opportunity to pick and choose and how does that develop over time?
There's a lot of things you can take pictures of. You can go to showrooms and take pictures of things that maybe you style and put together. You can take pictures in your own home. You can even look on, there's so many Instagram people that tell you how to take good pictures with your iPhone. It's not even like when I started. When I started, you had to have like we had film, like real film that you had to take pictures with. Now, if you just pull out your phone, you get a really good picture. I think being authentic to the design elements that you like, not necessarily always jumping on a trend or showing things that you think other people will like, but find your own design aesthetic that you like and want to push forward. And even like mood boards or renderings can go a long way. I don't believe in sharing on your main feed of any social media or website images of other designers' work. It's something I've never done, and I just don't think it really rectifies whose work like you're actually doing, and can you pull that off? It just shows that you like somebody else's. So it's really wonderful to show things on your feed that are yours. But in your stories, there's nothing wrong with celebrating another designer that you liked something of, or maybe it reminded you of something you designed, so you could reference it that way. But, staying true to your authentic self. And if you start small, you start small.
Makes great advice. So much good advice here, Anastasia. I think everyone listening will be appreciative, and I think it's an interesting model you've built up. So my kind of wrap up question for you is, all right, you've got this three-pronged business of your architecture and design, you've got the interior designer community and purchasing piece, you've got the retail store, and on the side, you're running the New Jersey chapter of Savvy Giving. So how do you manage your time? What is your secret to time management, to balancing yourself, to making time for yourself? You know, busy lady, how do you do it?
You have to hire employees that see your vision, and you have to give them the room to make their own choices and make their job feel like it's something that they own, their piece of that job. It's giving them the grace to make mistakes, to learn, to mentor. And every time I sit down and we have a problem at a job, because they're inevitable, they always happen, I always look at it and say, how could we have done this better? What can we learn from this? Tell me some actionable results for how we're going to solve this, and help them feel like part of the solution or part of the design philosophy, and keeping them engaged in a way that allows them to own it. And if they own it, they'll run with it. And all my employees have to run with their own parts of the job. I can't do them all. Like I can't run the store downstairs and the trade program and the architecture and interior design business. I have a director of architecture who really runs the architecture division, but I'm the creative, so I pop in. Zoe runs the trade program and procurement, and I have a store manager that runs that downstairs. So it's really about finding a good balance of staff that offers me the opportunity to sort of dabble in it all without doing it all.
Interesting. So you're clearly delegating well,
Mm-hmm.
and you expect a level of ownership. I had a coach once that liked to talk about, hey, you need to make sure that people aren't kind of moving the monkey to your back, right? That when you give them something to do, they can come with questions, but it can't be where they are kind of passing off the responsibility or a problem to you, right? That you're having
Mm-hmm.
them fully own that and run with it and coming to you with solutions versus just coming to you with problems. And I think
And
that's really good
and
advice.
then the other part of that is protecting them also. In this job, sometimes things can get a little hairy at
Mhm.
times, especially during construction. And sometimes things don't go the way we all hope. And I have to protect my staff. I have to keep them, I have to be the shield between maybe a horrible contractor or a client that's gotten a little crazy, because at the end of the day, they're with me a lot longer than that client or that contractor. So I want them to know that they never need to be in a situation where things are really uncomfortable and I'm going to not take their side, because I have to protect them. And that's also part of it, is well, is giving them enough room to make decisions and design choices, but also being there enough so that if
Mhm.
they do fall or scrape their knee, I can pick them up and push them along
The
again.
safe space and you
Yeah.
have their back. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Well, it was so great to talk to you today. Again,
Thank
so
you.
appreciative of all of the wisdom that you're willing to share, both locally and now here more broadly. And I hope to see you in person soon, and we
Thank
can
you.
kind of have a follow-up in the future. But I hope,
Okay.
wishing you a great week and a great year.
Thank you so much, and you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
This series is brought to you by Houzz Pro. To learn more about our best-in-class software for winning clients, managing projects, and simplifying your workflow, visit houzz.com/pro.